We wind up having Missouri occupied then with this interlocking network of economies based on resources valued, politics, religious values, all creating a sense of place and recreating the cultural landscape. Now, I put religion in there too because, again, Missouri landscape was tremendously affected by what religious orientation you have. And you look at the landscape today, you see it. Go to some of the rural German Catholic communities, and what's the dominating built environment there? A huge, huge church building that's there. Or think about, again, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, their occupation, declaring this land sacred, and then other Missourians declaring, no, you can't do that, and we'll shoot you if you stay, and then coming back and reclaiming it again, and other groups again and again. I did a significant amount of research a few years ago on white supremacy groups in the Ozarks, folks who've been able to find havens where they can promote their particular brand of racial separatism and find that support in a broader, more conservative religious community that lets them be that way. So it's always a mix as we change the landscape. One other factor, though, for understanding Missouri was this experience of there's a lot, or the experience of more. Now, one could say that is pretty much true of the United States of America in general, but Missouri again represents it. Missouri is a place that was and is well watered. You didn't have to worry. Oh, sure, periodic droughts, but they weren't significant enough to cause mass migration or panics. There seemed to be enough for use, for consumption, use for transportation. The experience of having good soils. Yes, thinner and difficult in the Ozarks, but look at all of that loss in the north. Look at the possibility of the lowlands. Even in the Ozarks, the lowlands. And again, Germans knew that. Live on the ridge, farm the lowlands. That understanding that there seemed to be enough, more than enough. Temperate, moist. Yes, the winters can be bad, the summers can be hot, but on the average, it's perfect. You just have to look at a little bit bigger picture. The experience of lots of varied vegetation and wildlife, and again, as I said earlier, because of centrality in the continent, you have all of those opportunities for all kinds of species to be there or to be transplanted and worked there. And access and mobility. You can get in and out of Missouri. You don't have to cross major mountains. It's just get in the water. It'll take you out. That experience there. In fact, you can get here too as well. French came down from the north relatively easy. The barriers were limited. Now, this creates in Missouri historically a sense is we don't have to worry because there's always enough. But a part of the character of human occupation of Missouri is we can spread out. We don't have to bunch up. Wherever you go, you can make it in Missouri. So there was that dispersed quality. There's always enough, and there's always another place you can go to. Now you understand the pluses and minuses of that. It makes for a very productive place, but it also begins to build in to the sense of place. We don't have to worry about saving so much, therefore, not so much about conserving. And so that has contributed then what may have happened a little bit later. Relationships to the land initially may have been gathering because there seemed to be so much, and this is normal kind of progression. Then you manipulate it a bit so you can gather some more, remove the soil so you can get to the minerals, or change the vegetation, take down the trees so you can do it. But there's that opportunity to manipulate it. Alter the topography, change the shape of the lands, shift the water, impound the water here, channelize the water there, irrigate here, drain it there. And this was boot heel development, beginning of the 20th century, get that water out of the way. Other places in northwest Missouri saying, no, we got to catch that water to keep it because we're going to need it. So you get those opportunities, though, that's a part of, again, of Missouri culture. Facing natural hazards, You prepare for that, you deal with that, but it's never quite enough to get you to move. It's not like living on the coast. Uh, we face it, but we deal with it. So as a part of Missouri culture is we can handle that. There's no natural hazard that will be too great. We experience, however, because of this attitude and this relationship, periodic depletion of certain things. And I'll give you just one example I think you know very well about that. Or a part of Missouri character is, particularly with the migrant populations like Scots-Irish, well, if it all doesn't work out, we can always move because there'll be more further west or further to the southwest. We'll just go there. And a part of that Missouri's insistence on claiming Kansas as a slave state was that, but that's our entitlement. We have the right to move further west and claim that as ours as well. Now, here's some example, and this was alluded to earlier. We know that in many cases, and I only lift up the timber industry, one, because it directly connects to the beginning of our federation, of the Conservation Commission, that when the railroads were the most important productive infrastructure and industry that was developing the land, Missouri was the best source of railroad ties, and we were number one. And tremendous amount of timber hauled away between the 1880s to the 1920s. Didn't matter, again, in the Ozarks particularly, who owned the land. You didn't worry about that so much. You claimed it or you had business relationships that avoided those issues. And the tie camps and the snake rafts and the rail connections were a part of it. But you know what happened after that. The consequences were depletion of timber, tremendous species change across the areas that were harvested for railroad ties, erosion, clogged springs. Some would even say, well, we wouldn't get the beautiful Ozark Springs today if we hadn't removed the timber, which eroded all the soil that got the dirt out of the way, so we can have rocky streams. But others speculate about all of the real consequences of that. But the result was tremendous change and alteration of what was there. The land disposal land called cutover land, you know those experiments in agriculture that were done after that, like tomatoes. You can still have folks tell you stories about how we tried to do tomatoes on all that worthless cutover land, try to turn it into pasture, or try to do something else with it, until we discovered maybe it just does better growing hardwood forests. Maybe that's really what it ought to do. And as you know, I don't need to reacquaint you with that history, but that experience of depletion led to then what we know today as a significant conservation movement and development. Respond. There it is. And also at the same time, when you deplete one species, you introduce another. And we don't want to forget that major shifts have been done in terms of what we have done historically to replace one set of species with another. So grassland into a cultivated cropland. Now, Native Americans were doing it first. Just that Europeans did it with more intensity. Or timber, not so matter of whether or not we have as much or more timber today than we had prior to the industry, but species have changed significantly. If you look back again, historic vegetation, you know right here in Boone County and Saline County and so on, you'll find that here was huge expanses of forests, and you look now as the farms disappear and the hardwood forests come back, we're seeing return to that. Wildlife to livestock, that kind of replacement, certainly a part of our culture. And as I said earlier, the loving and hating of uses of the floodplain. I used to say use it or leave it, but I think it's levy it, use it or levy it. It's some other kind of expression. Or one community's levies, another community's flood. That we have again that opportunity in Missouri out of depletion and crisis to build anew.